Hi, and welcome back to Alt Baking Bootcamp, your crash course in healthier baking. I'm your host, Mia, nutritionist, chef, and the founder of Rasa. Today, we're making a recipe that I'm super excited about, donuts. But these donuts are gluten-free and baked, not fried. So the inspiration behind these donuts is more of like a classic maple donut. Normally, I'm more of a chocolate girl, but when it comes to donuts, I just love that maple glaze. So to try and recreate that maple vibe, I'm adding some spices to the donuts. So today we're using cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and turmeric. And then the maple glaze is gonna be a mixture of maple syrup, obviously, coconut butter, and almond milk. And we're gonna top all of that off with some bee pollen to give it a little bit of a crunch and a little extra kick. This recipe is gluten, grain, and dairy-free. So we're gonna start with our wet ingredients, which includes 3 eggs. And then we're going for 1/4 cup of maple syrup, because what would maple donuts be without maple syrup? And this makes about 12 donuts. So if you think of 1/4 cup of sugar divided around 12 donuts, is really not that much. 1/2 cup of full fat coconut milk and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. All right, so I'm just gonna whisk this quickly. We're using 1 3/4 cups of almond flour and 2 tablespoons of coconut flour. Coconut flour always gives a nice cakiness to it. And then we've got some baking soda so that they'll rise. And then we're using quite a few spices today. So we're using some turmeric in small amounts, but these spices are really gonna add some, turmeric especially is very anti-inflammatory. These spices have lots of antioxidants in them. Obviously, they taste amazing. We've got ginger, which is fantastic for digestion, and cinnamon, which I love, and I've talked about this so many times here, but I love how cinnamon can help regulate your blood sugar levels. And so it's such a wonderful spice to use when you are having sweets, because it'll mitigate those blood sugar spikes, which is, a lot of what we're trying to accomplish here at Alt Baking Bootcamp. It's why we use unrefined sugars and unrefined flours. So I think that's really key. And then we've got some cardamom, which is just one of my favorite spices. It's just so fragrant. And then a little pinch of sea salt. Then I'm just gonna mix this together. All right, so we've got our wet ingredients, our dry ingredients. I'm just gonna mix these together. And we've got our oven set to 350 degrees. And I've greased my donut pan really well with coconut oil. All right, so as you can see, the dough is nice and thick, and you can kind of see some of the texture from the almond flour, which I really like. All right, this looks good to me. I think it's time to portion out our donuts. So I've got this cool little donut pan right here. They're very easy to find on Amazon, and I've greased it super well with some coconut oil. You could also use ghee here. So we're just gonna portion the donuts out. You wanna be mindful not to overfill the donut pan, because the donuts will rise too high, and then they'll fill in the hole, and then it wouldn't really be a donut, I guess. So we're using this donut pan so that we can bake our donuts instead of frying them. So most of the time when we're deep frying something, we're gonna have to use a vegetable oil that has a high smoke point. And those vegetable oils can be really inflammatory. Normally we have to use a canola oil, and they're really high in omega-6 fatty acids, which can disrupt the balance between our omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid balance. So yeah, we love our omega-3 fatty acids, and we are using some good eggs here. So there's definitely some omega-3s in here, and that's gonna help to reduce inflammation. And then we've also got all these anti-inflammatory spices in here. So this is a really great alternative to your regular old donut. As you can see, I haven't filled these very high. I'm just gonna fill it a little teeny bit more. And then I'm gonna give it like there we go. All right, I'm gonna pop these in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes, or until they're looking nice and golden, and then we'll let them cool and we'll glaze them. Okay, so our donuts are out of the oven. We let them cool, and as you can see, we have these perfect golden brown little donuts. So this is actually the bottom part. This was what was facing up on the pan. So little trick, I like to turn them over, and now we're gonna glaze them. So I've got 1/4 cup of our coconut butter and 1/4 cup of our maple syrup for our maple glaze. So obviously we need that maple syrup. 2 tablespoons of almond milk. Okay, so our maple glaze is ready, and I'm just gonna spoon it over our donuts and top with some bee pollen. So I'm using a little rack and letting the excess glaze fall onto a cutting board and top it with some bee pollen. This is the secret ingredient of the day. I love bee pollen. It's got a really nice texture to it, and it's super nutrient dense. It's full of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and it's actually, no pun intended, a very good source of B vitamins. All right, there we go. And now I just want to let these cool so that the glaze can set for a few minutes. All right, so they look really fun. The bee pollen sticks really nicely to the glaze, and I'm ready to give it a try. You can really taste the spices. It's got such a nice cakey density and feel and texture to it, but it's slightly sweet, not overly sweet, and the spices really come out, and then the glaze just has so much of that maple flavor that I was really craving in a donut. As always, the recipe is in the description below, and please comment, let me know how your donuts turn out if you want us to try another donut flavor or recipe here on Alt Baking Bootcamp now that you have your donut pans. Check the description below for the full recipe, and don't forget to subscribe to Well+Good's YouTube channel so you don't miss another episode of Alt Baking Bootcamp.